Hello, everybody, and welcome to the reflections of a former practicing Sangoma. And today we are talking about spiritual spouses. And if you go through the catalog, you would see that I have covered this topic before, but somebody made me aware that the audio, I think at some point in time, cuts. And I've tried to retrieve the audio and I'm not able to retrieve it. So this is another take with regard to spiritual spouses, but essentially the information is the same. Okay, so I think before we talk about spiritual spouses, we need to differentiate between spiritual grape, and I say grape, but you know what I mean. We need to differentiate between spiritual grape and spiritual spouses because there is a bit of a difference, okay? Um, Spiritual grape happens opportunistically. Okay. Um, what do I mean? I mean that the demon spirit would have been sent to your home to do something else. Okay. Um, Maybe it would have been sent so that it comes and causes fear. And how it does that is that maybe um it's coming to just open and close the doors, jump on the roof so that everybody is scared in the house. And then once it's there, it realizes, oh, I can actually even do this because demons are perverted. Okay? They are very perverted. Um yeah, I don't even want to gross you out. But that's why you see when people have Istwalo, the primary thing that needs to happen is intimate acts. When you take this thing, when you tata lendole, the primary thing that needs to happen is intimate acts, and that speaks to the pervertedness of the creatures. Okay, so the creatures are perverted. They will take opportunities. So sometimes you are waking up in the morning and you feel like you were intimate with somebody, but I mean, you are asleep alone in the bed. So how is it possible that you are intimate with somebody? And this is those instances where it takes an opportunity. They are also very seductive in their nature. Um, so they will appeal to you, right? They're not gonna just, especially if it's spiritual grape, they will appeal to you. They will come at you in a way that will make sense to you. So if it is a person that it will maybe take the form of a person that you have a crush on, those of you. Or maybe it will come in the form of you are now party to a television program that you consume the material a lot. For instance, when we were growing up, we watched a lot of The Bold and the Beautiful. So what would happen is that all of a sudden you would be Brooke in the story and Rich would be pursuing you, and you would now be performing intimate acts with Rich in your dreams. I've just given off my age, and there may be people who don't know The Bold and the Beautiful. Let's use another example. Um, what is this story now? 50 Shades of Grey. Yeah, 50 Shades of Grey. You may now be the girl in the story who is being dominated, or you may be the man who is dominating in your dreams, right? So 50 Shades of Grey will be playing out in your dreams and you will be actively participant. So that is also spiritual grape, guys. And yes, I know about these things because remember, I was in the world. I've been in the world. So I'm very privy to all of these things. So yes, it's very seductive in its nature. It will not come at you in a manner that will scare you most of the time. The only time that you will be scared is if you are spiritually inclined. If you are spiritually inclined, no matter how the animal tries to seduce you or tries to disguise itself, right? You will actually be able to determine that this is a creature. Okay. You may have a dream of performing intimate acts with a dog, right? If you are dreaming of performing intimate acts with a dog, you are sleeping with itogoloshi or umkovu, but it's most likely itogoloshi. So if you will literally be feeling like, not feeling, you will see it, that you are performing this act, but this is a dog. Okay, it's a tokoloshi. So that dream is not an innocent dream. Because I know some people think, oh, I love my dog so much that I'm having this kind of dream. If you are having that kind of dream, you are under serious spiritual attack. Okay. So yes, so it may be, like I'm saying, it usually presents itself in an innocent way. There's an innocent element about it, but it's very sinister and it's very perverted. So this is spiritual grape. Then let's talk about spiritual spouses. Spiritual spouses, the reason why they call it a spiritual spouse is because there would have been a wedding ceremony attached to it. Okay? Obviously, you cannot consent to getting married to a creature, but there would have been a marriage conducted on some kind of altar between yourself and this creature. How do they do that? Usually, the new sangomas, we use your pictures. It's easy because we only just have to look through social media and there your pictures are. In the olden days, they would use effigy dolls, and then they would need to get like maybe a piece of your hair or an item of your clothing or something that would represent you, that would be attached to the voodoo doll. Yeah, that would represent you. But nowadays, what we do is we take your picture and then we use the picture, and then a whole wedding ceremony is conducted between yourself and the creature. You will know this because you will have a dream of a wedding. If you are a girl, you will have a dream of a wedding. You yourself, you will be wearing the white dress. There will be a cake. There will be decor. There will be a band. I mean, it will be a complete wedding ceremony, but there will be no husband. Your spouse will not be there. And vice versa, if you're a man, you will know that this is my wedding. And there will be a cake, the tents will be there, everyone will be there except the person that you are getting married to. If you've ever had this kind of dream, you are married. Therefore, you have a spiritual spouse. If somebody else comes to you and says to you, I had a dream of you. You are wearing a wedding dress, but the wedding dress was dirty. Your lipstick was looking funny, and you were in the wrong place. Like you are in a place where a person who is getting married shouldn't be in. So this would be a dream that is being had by either your mom or your dad or your aunt or your sibling. So they are dreaming about you, and they are getting an indication of you having a wedding that is out of place. If somebody comes to you and says to you, I had a dream about you, it looked like you were getting married, but you were dirty, or you were outside a dirty place, but you were getting married, that's also an indication of what? A marriage taking place between yourself and a spiritual spouse on an evil altar. Okay, so it can either happen. So if when you experience the dream yourself, it's a pleasant experience. The only telltale sign will be that there's no spouse. Okay, if somebody else has the dream, it looks off, it's funny, it's weird. You're wearing a torn dress, you are dirty, you are at a place where you shouldn't be if you are getting married, and you are alone. There's no spouse, but you look like you're getting married, or you are about to get married, or you come back from getting married, but you are alone. That is an indication that you are married to a spiritual creature. Okay, some of you will then be saying, but I'm experiencing intimate acts at night and I've never had those dreams. The reason why you've never had those dreams is because spiritual spouses move between generations. That means that your great grandmother or somebody else in your lineage would have been married to the spiritual spouse before you came into the picture. And the spiritual spouse is literally just moving from the next generation to the next generation to the next generation. That's why they speak about generational curses. And then you see it manifesting in families where none of the girls in the family get married. Oh, and by the way, the spiritual spouses are not monogamous. All right. So they don't just choose one spouse. They can literally be a spouse to the three girls in the family or a spouse to the three boys in the family. Okay. Where you see, like I'm saying, all the girls in the family, they don't get married. Or even if they do get married, their marriages don't last. Right. These are telltale signs that, oh, and they say it's a generational curse. Yes, it's a generational curse, but it's a generational curse that is attached to a spiritual spouse. So when you are performing, I'm sorry, the prayers, or what do you guys call them? Evangelistic prayers. When you are performing, you need to be specific about we are uprooting the generational curse that is attached to the spiritual spouse that has been moving from generation to generation. That's the first thing. The other thing that you guys need to be concerned about when it comes to these things, I said they are generational curses. So they move from spouse to spouse. Two, they are hermaphrodites. What I mean is that they are able to engage a man and they are also able to engage a woman. Okay, so it's not exclusive that if there is a spiritual spouse, it will only be attached to the girls and it won't affect the boys. Sometimes it happens that way, but most of the times it doesn't. It attacks everybody. It's an equal opportunistic attacker. Okay, so it's so deep, this thing, and it's so perverted that I don't think enough is being said or being taught on the subject. Okay, but yeah, that is the problem where I think the pastors are concentrating on. We need to break the generational curse. Yes, you need to break the generational curse, but you need to uproot the spiritual spouse. That's the problem. Spiritual spouses, they move from generation to generation to generation to generation. So if these things are happening to you and you are quietly moving about your life, and then you happen to have children out of wedlock, your kids are probably going to suffer the same fate. Okay, so this is something that needs to be addressed. It needs to be attended to, and it needs to be addressed aggressively. If you are married, I previously indicated, it doesn't exclude you. And usually how this manifests with married couples is that you will be having fights that are not making sense, right? You will be having fights that are just, you will look at your spouse and be like, why are you attacking me like I cheated on you, right? So this will be the spouse who has another spiritual spouse will look at the spouse who doesn't have a spiritual spouse, and the spouse who doesn't have a spiritual spouse will be so aggressive towards their spouse that the other one will be failing to understand, why are you so aggressive with me? It's because spiritually your life spouse or your natural spouse is able to sense that there is another person competing for your attention. That is why when they argue with you, they are very aggressive, because in fact they're not fighting with you, but they're fighting with the spirit that is attached to you. If you are single, you recognize it because your relationships don't last, and your relationships are marked with fights and quarrels and things that don't make sense. That's how you identify that, okay, there is an extra person in this relationship. Your relationships, the first 3 months are happy, but after the first 3 months, man, things just go down the wrong hole, and like you don't seem to have anything in common. All of a sudden, you can't see eye to eye. All of a sudden, the person that you are in a relationship no longer wants to be with you, and if they are with you, they get irritated by you all the time. They're no longer interested in the things that they used to be interested in. It's usually the telltale signs that somebody in the relationship or you in the relationship are walking around with a spiritual spouse. Okay. And then, okay, so let's cover the doorways. But I think I've covered the most significant one, which is witchcraft, right? I've covered that one with the wedding on the evil altar. And then the second one will be music with raunchy lyrics. If you are listening to music that is, remember I spoke to you about monitoring spirits, right? And I said that the monitoring spirits, their only job, in fact, is to study you and to check what appeals to you, what you like, what are you watching, so that what? So that when the devil does attack you, they can attack you systematically, right? Um, it's never coincidental that if, for instance, like I made the example of the bold and the beautiful, you are broke. They will never ever present something to you that is not something that you are already engaging or something that you are already consuming. So music is a big, big, big doorway. Okay, especially if it's music with lyrics that are demeaning to the opposite sex, that kind of thing. It's not just gangster rap, by the way. It's also R&B. Lately, R&B is just, even back in the day, but I think lately it's just explicit. It's very explicit, and that is one of the doorways. The other one is television programs with inappropriate material, and not necessarily the ones that you would expect. I'm talking about things like 50 Shades of Grey. Um, I'm talking about the romantic comedies that go a little bit too far. Also, those things are dangerous because they are slowly but surely opening the door. Even cartoons are not safe. Okay, cartoons are not safe. And the thing about cartoons, and the thing that makes me angry about the cartoons, is that they introduce these things to our children, at such an early age, and they glamorize it. I'll give you an example. The example would be, this is not pertaining to spiritual spouses, but it's just an example of how pervertedness or evil pervertedness is introduced to our children. There is the one with the mermaid, the one with the red hair, where the cartoon glamorizes um marine life. And I used to watch this cartoon, by the way. I watched this cartoon, and you know what happened to me. I ended up becoming a sangoma, you know. So these things are not isolated. And then there's also the one, it's a movie where it depicts the calling of a little girl, right? And this little girl is attracted to the water. She's attracted to the water. Her grandmother, I'm not going to say the name of the cartoon, the grandmother subsequently dies, appears to her in spirit form, informs her that she now needs to go and embrace her calling and look for the gods. She comes across this demigod who has tattoos on his body. And I think you know the cartoon that I'm referring to. Um, that is literally the calling of a sangoma. And that is not even a South African story, right? It's not a South African story. So this thing is universal, right? So even cartoons are not safe. So television programs that are suggestive are not safe. Cartoons are not safe for our children. And then the obvious things are pornography, masturbation. But I want to touch on a subject that is very sensitive. This one is where we beat everybody. When I say we, I mean the witchcrafting people. This is immorality. Immorality. The Bible talks about flee from immorality. This is the biggest doorway, engaging in intimate acts with different people. You do not know where people have been. You do not know what people have done. You do not know what people have engaged in. I'm going to tell you a story that will indicate how dangerous it is to engage in premarital intimate acts. The guys that are in jail, right? I don't need to tell you what happens there in the jail. You know what's happening there in the jail. When they come out of jail, they come and they see a Sangoma and they do a cleansing ritual. But their cleansing ritual is not a normal cleansing ritual because you can understand that they are demon infested, right? And these are the immoral demons that have infested them because they were in this place where immorality is rife and it's the order of the day. So they are walking around with a lot of them. I mean, a lot of them, especially the men, right? And what they would do is they will come and we summon the spirits, right? All the evil spirits, we summon them into the men's genitalia, right? And what's supposed to happen is that the next person or the next female he engages, all of these evil spirits that had been walking with him will now be transferred over to the next female that he engages, and they will infest the female, and then he will be rid of the evil spirits. Okay, so therefore, engaging people that you don't know their history, you don't know where they've been, you don't know what they've done, can have dire effects for your life. All of a sudden, you are having these nightmares that do not make sense. It's like you're in a jail cell, but it doesn't make sense. How am I in a jail cell? It's because all of the evil spirits that were attached to this person who was incarcerated, they literally, the ceremony is that it's summoned into the person's genitalia so that when they engage a female intimately, it's transferred that way, right? It's like an STD basically, and it's very dangerous because a lot of people don't understand why they are walking around with a spiritual spouse when it's just not making sense. But that is one of the ways, and a lot of people who have been incarcerated, they do that, a lot of them. So what is it that am I saying to you? Spiritual spouses, unfortunately, guys, can only be defeated one way. Okay. um yeah, there's only one way: fasting and praying. That's it. Fasting and praying. I cannot give you um other things. I can't give you, I cannot give you another formula. The other thing that I need to speak on, warn the ladies about, is natural hair weave. These weaves that we wear that are Peruvian. Brazilian, it told me. Guys, please do not wear natural hair. Don't wear someone's hair. Because what happens with that hair is the same thing that I just explained with the guys in jail, right? So the women in this particular culture, I just can't remember what the name of the culture is, what in the tribe. So what they do is the priest again performs a ceremony where they direct all the curses and all the evil spirits and whatever it is that is creating havoc for this person into the hair. All of the spirits, they direct it into her hair, and then she cuts off her hair. And initially what they used to do is they used to burn the hair, but now they sell the hair. And then now you have come and you've bought this Peruvian weave, you are attaching it to your head, and you don't know what evil spirits were bothering that woman. So if that woman had a spiritual spouse, you would then inherit the spiritual spouse through your hair. So yeah, I think I'm done on this topic. This is a serious topic, and you cannot take it lightly. You just can't take it lightly. You need to be careful about what you are exposing yourself to. The one with the weave is important. The one with the intimate acts, refrain from it. I don't know what else to tell you. Refrain from it. But yeah, ask. Oh, and I keep, you see, You see how hectic this topic is. Some of you consulted a sangoma, and the sangoma then said to you, there is a family member or a grandfather who is walking around in the wilderness, was not buried by the family or was buried by the government. And this is the person that is creating strife for you in your life and closing off your things. And that's why your things are not progressing. You need to go and fetch this ancestor. And in fact, you do. You perform the ceremony, you go and you fetch the ancestor as per what the ancestor has identified themselves to be at. You bring the ancestor into your yard. And as soon as you bring the ancestor into your yard, it wreaks havoc into your life. The husband starts drinking. The little girls or the wife is having a spiritual spouse. And now you don't understand because you're like, maybe the Sangoma didn't perform the ritual properly. It's not the Sangoma. If you go, okay, so first of all, I'm not encouraging anybody to go and see a Sangoma for a consultation, right? But if you receive such information, the first thing you need to do is you need to find out from family members, why is such and such a person not buried by the family? Don't jump the gun just because when you have the money. Just because you have the money doesn't mean that you must do everything that is said to be done. Sometimes it's not even you who consulted. Sometimes it's an aunt or whoever who says, oh no, I went to see such and such a person. And when I was at such and such a person, this person then said to me, the reason why your life is not going well is because of such and such an ancestor who is walking around in the wilderness, and you need to go and fetch the person. And then, in fact, you do. Here's the problem with ancestors, especially people are old people, old African people who are not buried by their families. There is a problem with that person. It is highly unlikely in African culture that they would not bury their own. Highly unlikely. Highly unlikely. Either the person was having some kind of a mental illness, or the person was bewitched that they didn't know where home was, or the person was in jail, or something to that effect. Now you've gone, you fetched a crazy spirit and you've put it in your home. Now you've gone and you fetched a spirit that died in jail and put it in your home. So, what am I saying? I'm saying that stop performing rituals. That's what I'm saying. There are so many ways that you can acquire a spiritual spouse that it is impossible for me to cover. I've tried to cover all of, and you see, as I'm doing this, and I even have notes. But even as I'm doing this, there's more things that are coming to mind that I didn't cover in my preparation on this topic, because this topic is so vast. And the only way really to protect yourself is to comply with the Bible and stop performing intimate acts. If you are not married, you have no business performing intimate acts. Sorry, you have no business performing intimate acts. Right? If you are married, you only perform intimate acts with your wife or your husband. That's it. I don't know how else to emphasize that. But yeah, this is a serious topic, and I think I've gone on for a long time. I hope I wasn't preachy. But yeah, I've covered this now, and I hope you guys are edified and you learn something from this vlog. And I will see you next time. Please like, please subscribe, please send your questions, and I appreciate you, and thank you, thank you, thank you.